Too many times we stand aside and let the water slip away. So what we put off to tomorrow has finally come today. So don't stand upon the shoreline and say you're satisfied. Choose to chance the rapids and dare to dance the tide. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Maxwell Ivy, known around the world as the Blind Blogger, and this is another episode of my show, What's Your Excuse? And you can find me and all that good stuff on theblindblogger.net. That's also where you can purchase my latest book, The Blind Blogger's New York City Adventures, How You Can Make Your Dreams Come True. And it's full of the usual wide-eyed wisdom and brutal honesty that y'all have come to expect from me. And today on my show, I have a kind of an unusual guest for me because she's not an author, but she is doing her own thing to help improve our world, and she's starting where everybody really should start. She's starting with our kids. Her name is Edwina Cowell, and she's the founder, the creator, the parent of an organization called spiritualplaydate.com. And her goal is to help teach kids to be more accepting, tolerant, understanding of other cultures and religions, and also wanting to teach them to be more critical thinkers and have a better understanding of our world. And so I think she has a lot of great ideas and goals, and I'm really happy to have you on the show. So welcome, Edwina. How are you doing today?
I am doing great, and thanks for having me today, Max. Nice to see you.
Well, it is nice to see you, and I hope the weather is better there in Chicago than it is in the Northeast.
It is absolutely freezing here. I think it's 27 today. No, it's not very nice here, but that's it's a typical Chicago spring. It was hailing yesterday, and I expect it'll be 60 tomorrow. So we just kind of roll with it.
Yeah. And but when I was introducing you, I actually left out a couple of things about you. I didn't know this until I started reading more about you, but you were the first female pit director or whatever on the floor of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange.
I wasn't the first. I was not the first, but okay, I was one of very few. I was a trader. A Eurodollar trader at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. There were just a handful of women brokers at that point in time. The ratio is probably, it had to be 100 men to every one woman down there, and especially in that role. There were clerks and things, women clerks and things, but not very many women traders.
Yeah, I bring that up because it really shouldn't. I bring it up because after hearing that, I'm like, well, it really isn't a surprise that you're a person who's going to be doing unusual things or taking new approaches to old problems. And it was, I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that. Also, I love that you're a dog person, that you helped to secure the local shelter there and make sure that it continues to thrive and take care of the area's animals that need homes, and that's also very impressive. So thank you for that.
Thank you. You're very welcome. Thank you for acknowledging it. I'm a huge animal lover, always have been, and I volunteered at a local shelter, and it was really animal control that was handling the animals there, and there was a real need for an organized nonprofit at the time there. So we several volunteers got together, and I spearheaded a new nonprofit, a 501c3 called CARE, which is still in existence today, is responsible for the adoption of thousands of animals. So very proud of that.
Yeah, and while you're doing this, you then become a wife and a mother of two young boys, and you're not happy with their spiritual education. So why don't you tell people a little bit about what you were thinking and how Spiritual Playdate finally came about?
Sure. So spiritual playdate, the origins of spiritual playdate is really, it really was a playdate. One of my sons was 7 at the time. He was playing with 2 other 7-year-old boys, and on a weekly basis, the 3 moms and the 3 kids got together, and the kids ran around, and the moms, we had coffee and chatted and found ourselves complaining often about the nature of their spiritual education. One of the moms was in a very conservative religious, well, not the moms, but one of the boys was in a very religious, very conservative religious school. And that mom felt like her son's education was a little bit narrow. She wanted a broader conversation. The other mom had walked away from everything. She's what we would have now call one of the nuns, the NONES. And she was at the point where her son was asking questions, and she felt like she wanted to get engaged in dialogue and be able to feel like she had some answers to those questions. And I was at a place, my son was at a Unity Church at the time, and I was very, very happy with his involvement in the kids program there. But I felt like I wasn't part of the conversation, because he would come home and there really wasn't much conversation at home. I wanted to bring that conversation home. So the 3 of us sort of decided to take that playdate time, and instead of hanging around, sit down with our kids, and we called it the Playdate with a Purpose. And so that was a really special time, and we did it for 2 years, and we really made it up as we went along, and we found ourselves talking about holy books and spiritual teachers and world religions and forgiveness and gratitude and all sorts of wonderful things like that. And now that was many, many years ago, and that son is in college at the moment, but several years back, this was something that sort of kept stirring in my heart. And we had gotten so much feedback from other parents saying, this is a great idea. Why don't you write a book? Why don't you put a program together? And so that we took the origins of that, and I decided to take it on the World Wide Web and put it on take it on the road. And so that was really how Spiritual Playdate came to be.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you started with play, with things that were fun, in order to get to the point where you could have conversations about more involved, more difficult, more scary issues.
I totally feel like our kids need more engagement. That's how they learn. That's what is exciting and fun for them. Us sitting and talking to them, it's that old school method really doesn't serve them very well. It doesn't serve us very well either. And most of these topics are not horrifying topics. I mean, we don't have the answers to a lot of them. But that's another piece that's come out of it, is we've realized that as we crafted this, we really wanted this to be a program that wasn't a curriculum so much as conversation and dialogue and exploration, so that you could say to the kids, listen, I don't know. It's pretty scary if your kid comes to you and says, Mom, is hell real? Or, did Jesus really walk on water? Or any kind of really big, complicated question like that. So I think the best way to approach those things is to sit down together and talk about it, and to be able to say, I don't know. And I just actually wrote an article. Let's call me an aspiring author. Maybe I'm not an author yet. I do like to write. I'm an aspiring author.
Well, you have to be careful. That word aspiring is dangerous. You go from aspiring to author, and then it's where's your next book? So,
but I did just write an article. We just published, as a matter of fact, a blog piece that was it's based on a question that my son asked, which was, Mom, who created God? And which is a lovely question. And I want to meet the person that can answer that. So it's our approach is not necessarily, I have the answers, which I think can be really intimidating for parents. They don't want to screw their kids up. They don't want to necessarily indoctrinate their kids or scare them. But at the same time, I think they'd like them to believe in something bigger and, have faith in something, whether that's God or humanism or something else. I think that there's an approach that we can use that's a little bit more authentic with kids. And that's what we try to do. We don't mandate any specific beliefs. Everything that you see in our program is really about question and exploration and getting the kids engaged in conversation and getting them to think about those questions.
Yeah. Now you mentioned parents, their fear of screwing their kids up. Because I really can't think of a better way to put that. Did you personally have those fears when you were raising your kid at this 5, 6, 7 years old before you started the play dates?
Well, I think many, many parents do. And of course I did. And I was raised in a also in a very rigid, sort of a punitive faith that was frightening. It was really frightening. And I didn't feel like that served me. And when I found ideas that were more empowering, but were still sort of in line with a lot of the teachings of that particular faith, I realized that there was a way to go down this path without being afraid of everything. It's interesting. We were spending some time this morning. My team had several meetings, and a lot of thoughtfulness went into the idea of whether or not we capitalize the word God, because we knew that would be controversial, because there are people that say, oh, you must capitalize the word God. And then there are people who will say, well, that's not even a concept that exists. So, who cares? So we decided as a team that we thought it would be important for us to maybe not capitalize the word God, because we didn't want kids to feel like if they believed in a God, that God would be upset with them if his name wasn't capitalized. So again, it's a tiny thing, but a lot of thought went into it from our team. And you will see that in our tagline, we don't capitalize the word God. And throughout a lot of our content, we don't capitalize that word. And I am quite sure that there will be pushback, and there will be plenty of folks coming back and saying, that's irreverent. But, it's our choice to pursue it that way. So, but yes,
well,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm not exactly sure about whether it should be capitalized or not. Now you've got me thinking about it, but I do know this much, that many, many years ago, there was a debate over whether or not it was even okay for us to use his name. So to have a conversation over whether it should be capitalized or not capitalized, I can definitely see that. And now you've got me. I'm going to have to go think about that one on my own for a while. So thank you. I feel like I've had a good day if I get at least one moment where I go, okay, that's something I didn't know yet, or something I'm going to have to puzzle on. But that is for an organization, that is a big step, because you do have an audience or a constituency or whatever you want to call them, and there are going to be a certain number of those who are just going to get upset on principle that you decided not to capitalize the word God. So it's
absolutely
business decision as well as a decision based on the issue. It's a business decision as well, isn't it?
Sure. But, we are what we would call now a conscious corporation. We are an L3C, which is a hybrid between a nonprofit and a corporation. And we're pursuing this in a little bit of a different way. Where our hope is to reach people that not only are within a lot of the different organized faiths, and that are interested in learning about other faiths and learning more about the world and other worldviews, but also to bring to families that wouldn't ordinarily maybe have an opportunity to learn about faith. Certainly a lot of the parents that have walked away from everything, we always say they're throwing out the baby with the bathwater. There's a lot of treasure in spiritual teaching. Most of the yoga practices, meditation, that's all come from spiritual teaching. Ideas about forgiveness and love and gratitude, those are all coming from ancient spiritual concepts, the golden rule. So to not include that somehow in our child's upbringing is difficult, because you're missing out on a piece. So, and a lot of folks are not getting it in organized faith education. And the other thing that we're forgetting is that the age to really talk to kids is really like 6 to 10 or 11. The age of reason is maybe around 5 or 6, and then 10 or 11 is when they start to separate and push away. So a lot of parents will wait until their kids are thinking when they're 11 or 12, they're going to start having these big, deep conversations. But when they're 11 or 12, they're not that interested anymore. They're really interested more in their friends and pulling away from parents. So, so we have an approach that we want to be a little bit universal and a centrist sort of common sense look at a lot of these things, but also questioning everything. And there will absolutely be pushback. We will absolutely have resistance in things. But, that's the nature of dialogue. And I don't think by not talking about it, we've gotten anywhere, frankly. So that's another reason why we feel like it's important.
Yeah. Now, I am curious, when you talk about bringing in, multiple faiths, interfaith, how do y'all deal with the religion of Islam?
So what we try to introduce to children is the stripped down, the most stripped down basic information about all faiths and about concepts like sacred spaces, spiritual teachers, holy texts. So we're introducing concepts, we're introducing language, we're introducing the idea of religion, which, this is one of the things that we have failed our kids a little bit, because this is the way we've approached this is one of the problems with that we have, cutting off critical thinking skills in our kids. So I had a parent who said to me, I'm getting more and more uncomfortable sitting my child down and telling him, this is what you believe. And that is really what we do. When we take a specific faith and send them off to a specific school that teaches them a specific idea about the universe, our world, and they are unaware that there are other ideas and thousands and millions of other ideas about, existential ideas and about theology and cosmology and life. You take the kid and that child suddenly thinks that, oh, this is the way it is. This is what everybody believes. So as they grow up and then they have this rude awakening that there are many other ideas in the world, they may embrace that, or they may resist that and decide that's too mysterious. I'm not interested in learning about that, or it's just wrong. So when it comes to Islam and when it comes to any kind of extremist ideas that have to do with religion, we try very hard to present the areas of commonality. And one of our favorite pieces is really the golden rule. And we spend a lot of time and energy teaching about the golden rule. The golden rule to me is really, I call it the universal peace hack. And it is really, I think, the answer for all of our problems. There are 22 major religions that have a very similar version of the golden rule. And the golden rule, the way we teach it, we don't do a very good job teaching it. We teach it very transactionally. I'll be nice to you, Max, you be nice to me. But the truth is, if you take all those versions of the golden rule and you distill them down, what they are saying is, Max, you and I, we come from the same source. Whatever you want to call that, we return to that source. There is a part of us that is deeply and inextricably connected. There's a part of us that's the same. When I treat you badly, I hurt myself. When I care for you, I lift us both up. I lift us all up. It's not transactional, it's transformational. And when we start to teach our children that when they hurt someone else, they hurt themselves, not necessarily because there's some karma coming at them, but because when they behave that way, they don't feel good about themselves. They lose a piece of themselves. When they help someone, they lift themselves up. They start to feel better about who they are. And that's the golden rule. So we treat those pieces of each religion as something important as a gift to give to our kids. We try not to get too much into the weeds of all these different religions and all of the dogma and things that they espouse. I could go on and on, but I'll take a breath.
Okay. But so many people, when they talk about the golden rule, they are talking about it in a transactional sense. And it's as if it only works if it's working for me is the way many of them see it. And I was just asking about the way y'all deal with Islam, because I've noticed that we have so many adults who have gotten to the point where it's either totally evil or it's a beautiful accepted religion. We don't have a lot of in between in any of our discussions anymore. And so that's why I wanted to get you started with Islam, because that's like one of the real problem areas for us to have a good discussion about anymore. But your approach would probably have helped us now if we had started talking to some of these people who are elected leaders 30 years ago.
Oh, I would totally agree. And I think that, again, our judgments about faiths come from some of these real extreme ideas that are popping up, and not necessarily from a lot of what the teachings of the faith are. And even in every faith, in every single faith, in every single house of worship, you have a spectrum of ideas. I think there isn't, a single belief that exists the same in any single human head and heart about their faith. It's kind of this fluid journey that everyone's on. One of the things I've learned about Islam since I've been doing this is that here in the West, there are not very many mosques. We have thousands and thousands and thousands of churches that have splintered into hundreds of sects. So the different levels of ideas about, let's say, Christianity or Judaism, they've sort of started to break apart into very conservative or very orthodox or very into reform or progressive. That doesn't happen in the mosques here because there aren't very many mosques. So in any given mosque, you will have constituents that are from the most conservative to the most progressive, from young to old, all worshiping in the same house, if you will. So that's another thing. I think we barely understand the religions that we practice in. So to sit there and judge another religion and say, this is who they are, or that is Islam, or that is Judaism, is crazy. We've had no journey through those teachings. So the first thing we have to do is back off and not be so quick to judge. Maybe that practice is not for you, but undoubtedly you will find it's not what you think it is. So that's what, again, critical thinking does. It opens up your mind to say, don't be so quick to box it up and package it up and say, this is what it is.
Well, even even among the Christian congregations, you have people who think who believe in a vengeful, wrathful God. You have people who believe in a loving Father God. You have people who believe in the strict law practice, where it's about acts and duties, and you have people who believe it's all about faith and what's in your heart. And those are just a few of the many different approaches, but those are some of the general major divisions, and that's just in the Christian church. So I can definitely agree with what you're saying about our misunderstanding Islam or Judaism or Hinduism or these other the churches that the faiths that we have no experience with at all.
I agree completely. That is what I was trying to say, because I do think that as we journey through that, we haven't even been exposed to it, let alone taken a journey through it. And again, this is not just now, this is throughout history. There has been, this friction in terms of the interpretation of all of these faiths and the evolution of all of these faiths. There are reforms. There are huge reform movements in some of these faiths. And I think some of that is what's happening in Islam right now. You have a big movement in Islam to sort of reform their approach to the patriarchy that's in there, acknowledge that there is patriarchy and reform that. So there's a big movement there. There's groups, Muslims for Progressive Values, for example, which is a group that is examining their faith, looking at it, finding out what serves them, and seeing if it is something that they feel is truth for them. And, I always like to refer to anyone that's pursuing faith as a truth student. There's someone that's trying to discern truth. And just because it comes out of a book or out of a teacher's mouth doesn't necessarily mean it's true for them. So I think the idea of pursuing truth is a nice approach, as opposed to it's because it says it here or this person taught it. I think that's a little bit of a more authentic approach for what feels right in your heart, what resonates with you. And I think not questioning things is a problem. I think just going along and not questioning your faith or looking at it or talking about your child is a problem.
Yeah. Well, I'm here talking with Edwina Cowell. She's the creator of Spiritual Playdate, and you can find her at spiritualplaydate.com. And in my limited reading of just the Bible, I've noticed that there's a lot of passages that make reference to seeking, to researching, to pondering, to meditating. You don't have to read very far in the Christian Bible before you get to the idea that we are supposed to think about this stuff. So I appreciate you bringing that out here. Now, I want to ask, what kind of progress have you been able to see with the kids you've worked with since you started this as a professional teaching approach, since I really don't know what words to use there?
Well, we love the word approach because it is a new approach. I just want to add one thing. I thought of something that I was, before we jump to that question, another area that we have tremendous bias in is between theists and atheists. Unbelievable bias. I always like to quote, there's actually a TV show journalist and a writer and a lawyer that wrote about stupid versus evil. And I like to use that as my metaphor for theists versus atheists. Atheists thinks theists are stupid, and theists think atheists are evil. And you know what? Neither of that is true. Just because someone is on a different path, because they need more evidence, because they don't necessarily believe in a specific creator or gods or, a divine intelligence, doesn't mean that they're evil. And people that believe in theists because they have no in a God because they have no empirical proof, they're not stupid. So I really, again, this entire approach with kids is about to build some more bridges of understanding and acceptance with them so that they don't go into the world and have all these preconceived notions about every other human being and what they think. And it is, again, it's something we have got to start talking about, because what we have done is build nothing but walls around us.
You mentioned you were using that example of the one group thinks the other is stupid, the one group thinks the other one is evil. A lot of our problems in having civilized discussions nowadays are because we no longer think the other person is wrong. We think the other person is evil if they don't agree with our point of view on a particular subject.
Absolutely. And that is one of the things that we try to tackle in this approach, is to find the understanding, to really look into what it is that you're talking about and really see if it's true. We have topics that cover what is true. So again, it's opening up the minds of the kids through the adults, and it's so clear to me and how the adults learn alongside the kids. I never learned more than when I sat down with my kid and did this. This just totally opened up my mind to all kinds of new things. So I apologize. I didn't mean to buck your question.
No, that's fine. That's fine. You have actually helped me to ask a better question. So thank you. So now, not only do I want to know about the changes in the kids, I want to know what kind of changes you're seeing in their parents since you started doing this on a regular basis.
So our program is all delivered digitally. Everything, 100% of it is online. Now we do speaking engagements and parenting workshops, and sometimes we physically go facilitate play dates or might have a video play date with somebody that's offsite. But we've created these tools. They're global tools. They're being used. We have an affiliate in Mumbai, an affiliate in Nigeria, affiliate in Johannesburg. We're just starting to reach the world with these tools. But the important thing here is that it's not delivered by one teacher. It's a tool for the adult to have the conversation with the kids. It's what it is. It's a toolbox. It's resources. It's a series of, everything is done in a series of scripted questions, so that the parent can sit down and ask the question, and then they discuss it. And we talk about some of the universal beliefs that people have about heaven and hell, or whatever the topic is, so that you can start to explore it. So I think it's just liberating to be able to have the conversation. I think that's probably what I've heard from the parents the most, is that, to be able to sit down and talk about these things with their kids is very freeing. And because it's such a slippery slope, many parents have not wanted to do it. And so that's why we have created this, because we feel like it's really not as hard as you think. And I think it's the answer, feeling like you need that answer, is what's so intimidating.
Okay. Well, now, how do you, is there, other than the questions and these scripts that give people an idea of what they're going to do, how do you help people deal with their own personal fear when they start to do these play dates for themselves?
Well, we haven't had too many people say they were afraid to do it. We've made it as simple as possible. There's a great Einstein quote. If you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it yourself. And so when, we've stripped this down, you're talking about sitting on the ground and talking with kids. We have stripped this down to just the most basic concepts that are not hard to talk about. It's not hard to talk about forgiveness. It's not hard to talk about love or gratitude or bullying, but it's hard to have a complete conversation because you don't always know where it's going to go. We try to give you enough enough questions and answers that you can tailor it to where you want to go when you're talking about these things. So every every topic has 3 sessions. So let's say love, for example, the most basic. So the first session would be love, and the second session is loving others, and the third session is loving self. And we talk about concepts about loving others. There's different kinds of loving others. There's loving pets and romantic love and family love. And so you're just throwing out all these concepts that you can talk about. And it gives parents the confidence to be able to pursue that conversation. I don't think that they get into dangerous territory. I mean, we haven't had any feedback where people are feeling like they can't talk about it. I think, like I said, it just sort of shores them up so that they feel like there's enough there that they know how to talk about it a little bit more.
Yeah. Have y'all ever thought about coming out with some of these to help some of us adults talk to other adults about these subjects?
It's interesting.
We mess that up all the time.
Well, it's interesting because, the original play date was 3 moms and 3 adults. And while we have 2 different kinds of memberships, we have a membership for individuals, which is for parents. And then we have a membership for affiliates, which is more like a Sunday school or a yoga class or even a therapist group. But it's the parents, adults sitting down with the kids where you are all talking together. And some of the magic that happens is we talk more gently when we're talking to our kids. If I sit down with you and we have kids there, we're not going to start, shutting each other down and saying we're wrong and rolling our eyes and walking out of the room. We're going to try to cultivate some sort of a conversation that, again, serves our kids. How can we build something in them? How can we build an understanding in them? How can we help them trust? How can we help them understand this crazy situation that we have in this world right now? And this crazy situation that we have in the world right now, in my opinion, comes entirely from the idea that we are separate. And that is right back to the golden rule. And when you continue to return to the golden rule, it's easy to talk to each other. We are connected. I am not here to hurt you. We need to talk through this and understand each other.
Yeah. When you think more about the other person, or at least as much about them as you do yourself, usually you're not going to go too far wrong. And I think it's interesting that if you talk to a lot of the more well-known business coaches right now, so many of them are talking about phrases like offering value, giving more value than the fee would indicate. One of my favorite expressions is under promise, over deliver, and that's becoming an approach quite common among people in online business. And I think that's the economic version of the golden rule, where the whole point is, if I help the other guy succeed, then eventually I will succeed as well.
Absolutely. And I love that it is starting to permeate our business culture. You are starting to see it because I think we're starting to understand that this separateness has really been damaging to us. I mean, we are in an awful state right now. And when we start connecting back, I mean, that's really what all the social entrepreneurship is. It's connecting back to community. When you aren't just worried about, your bottom line, but you also have some sort of a mission to connect back and do something good for the planet, or, the underserved, or whoever, then suddenly you have an additional purpose that serves the greater good. And that's when we all start to thrive. If every business had even one small connection back to the greater good, as opposed to everything just feeding into their bottom line all the time, I think we'd just be in a different place right now. And I'm hoping that's where we're going in the future, because I do see a big wave of that coming.
Well, I definitely hope you're right, because this whole idea of the resurgence of nationalism, of protectionism, of everybody more worried about themselves than anybody else. It's kind of scary because for me personally, I thought we had all of those things behind us. I thought this resurgence of racism, of just, I'm going to take care of myself and the rest of the neighborhood, community, country, world can take care of themselves. It's really disturbing to me because it seemed like for so much of my life we were going the other direction as a group rather than as it is now, where we have some great people doing some great things like you for example, but it seems like the ones who are getting all the attention are wanting to drag us back to the me first kind of approach to this world.
Well, I see that as well. I try very hard to make sure that I let everyone know as uncomfortable as this place in time is, I have several thoughts about it. First of all, I feel in my own personal beliefs, I feel like this is not an accident that I am here at this point in time in history and that I have gifts to deliver. And I think it's true with everyone. I think it's true with you, Max. I think there is no accident that we're here at this point in time. We have work to do. And sitting around wringing our hands and crying about, what is happening just doesn't do anyone any good. But I also feel like it's not necessarily a resurgence. I think it's been revealed. I think there has been something festering and we've been busy, treating the tumor, not the cancer. We can't heal something if we don't know it's there. And I think there was an underlying problem for a long time that's been covered up and we haven't done anything about it. We haven't gone to the source of it. And, our leadership is not the source of it. Our young men are the source of some of these problems who, feel marginalized and feel like they have no options. The young men that are joining ISIS, that's the source of the problem. So, again, acting like there's going to be a top-down answer is just not something that works for me. I feel like the answers are bottom-up. The grassroots kinds of things, the talking to our kids, the working in our communities, the really digging in and figuring out what the issues are that these young men feel the need to go out and espouse the kind of hate that they're embracing. We have to get into that, dig in there and get messy and figure out how we can help change that, because that's what's going to change the world.
Well, I couldn't think of a better spot to end, except I want to give you a couple of minutes to tell people exactly how they go about getting involved in having the spiritual play dates in their own town, community, or organization.
Well, that would be great. Thanks, Max. So our website is www.spiritualplaydate.com. Spiritual Playdate is targeted to adults that want to work or teach, either parents or teachers or therapists or any kinds of mentors that are working with kids in the age group of 6 to about 11. Spiritual Playdate has two different kinds of memberships. It has an individual membership that parents can use for full access to everything on our website for $2 a month. That's our premium membership. There's also a free membership, and there's plenty of free content. But the premium membership gives you full access to everything. That's $2 a month for parents. The organizational membership, which is the affiliate membership, that is being used by Sunday school teachers and yoga teachers and meditation teachers and all sorts of different groups and groups that will religious educators and groups that are even using it in their therapists' offices. And those affiliates, that organizational membership is $101 a year. And that gives you not only full access, we partner with you to cross-promote anything that aligns with our work. We are on Facebook, we are on Twitter, and we're bringing the next round of resources that we're going to bring to you is going to be Peace Teens, and that we hope to have by the end of this year. And that's going to be for middle schoolers and high schoolers. What if you are interested, go to spiritualplaydate.com, register and sign up, and go to Soul Talks and take a look. You're going to get started. There's all kinds of topics there and all sorts of content coming. You can pick a topic and just have a little look at it, and you can sit down with your kids. Every topic and every session has activities, music. Some have video games included, as well as the actual, what we call the heart of the Soul Talk, which is the conversation, the questions in the conversation. And please reach out to us if you have questions. We're available. I'm Edwina at spiritualplaydate.com and info@spiritualplaydate.com. Please just reach out to us and let us know if we can help you and support you in any way in this adventure.
Well, I want to thank you a lot for coming on the show and for sharing some of your wisdom with my audience for a little while here. And I do hope that they contact you. One thing I am really impressed with by you now is that you gave out your actual email address. I've actually gotten laughed at and even criticized a few times by giving out my email address during an interview, because they're like, man, do you realize who might get a hold of you? And I'm like, there's not a whole lot of people who can't get a hold of me if they want to. So I just feel like it's better to make people feel welcome, make them feel like we actually want to talk with them and hear their questions and maybe solve some problems before they become really big problems.
Well, that is my hope. I think working with youth is really the answer. Change will happen in our world generationally, and moving towards more kindness and compassion is really the only path.
All righty. Well, thank you. And I hope people will come and check out the website. Okay. Well, now we get to the part where I say what I think I learned. And, I'm not exactly sure what new I learned, but it's great to have somebody confirm some of the things that you've lived by or that you were taught as a young man. And she is right. When we think about other people more than we think about ourselves, good things happen in this world. Unfortunately, it's a lesson that we have to teach people when they're very young. And so she's only been doing this for, maybe 5 or 6 years as an actual organization. And so it's going to take a while before her and other people like her can have an effect. I said it during the interview. It would be great if somebody could have done this 25 or 35 years ago, and then our elected leaders today maybe would have a little softer hearts or a little more open minds. And so that's what I'm going to hope for as I think about this interview with Edwina Cowell from spiritualplaydate.com. And I hope that people will get in touch with her and talk to her about putting on her program or using her techniques in their home or their community. And I think it's another great reminder that a lot of times big ideas, amazing organizations, wildly successful corporations start with people in their homes, their garages, their basements. Start with friends trying to solve a problem, come up with an unusual solution, make up the rules as they go along, and not worry about whether they are weird or crazy or different or controversial, but just worry about, does this serve our purpose? As a person, household, community, world, does this serve our purpose? And it really goes back to something Louise Hay is known for saying. She likes to say that should and should not are two of the most dangerous thoughts in the English vocabulary or in the human language. And in Edwina's case, in the case of her friends, they wanted to have children who were more open to ideas, better problem solvers, more creative thinking. And they did that through play, through fun, through asking questions. And I've always said this, I've said it many, many times. A lot of the best things that have happened in my life started by somebody asking me a question. I mean, thanks to Eve Koivula, who once asked me, Max, have you ever thought about writing a book? So I really think her method works. I wish more people would apply it in their daily lives. And I hope we don't have to wait until her spiritual playdate kids are teenagers, adults, or in their 30s and 40s before we start to see some of these ideas take hold and become the way we treat each other, because we really do need to think about other people more. So I want to thank you for spending some time with me. I know you have a lot of obligations on your time. I know that you have many choices as to how to spend what few extra minutes you do, and I'm thankful you spend them with me. So until next time, oh, wait a minute. You can find me at theblindblogger.net, theblindblogger.net. And if you would like to be a guest on my show, you can email me, justask@theblindblogger.net, justask@theblindblogger.net. And if you want to have me get you booked on podcasts and radio shows, go over to my online publicity page. Okay, so until next time, thank you, God bless you, and take care out there. So I will sail my vessel until the river runs dry, like a bird upon the wind. These waters are my sky. I'll never reach my destination if I never try. So I will sail my vessel until the river runs dry.